Okay, so before we do anything else, just remember what I said, okay? Do you remember? Warning, warning. Consume this information responsibly. When Daniel saw this vision of the 70 weeks prophecy, he was mourning for 3 weeks. I just touched on that briefly. Just consume it responsibly. Share this information with other people. We all deserve to know what this prophecy really says, not what the mainstream churches and seminaries and pastors have been shoving down our throats for hundreds of years, okay? And going back to that point, right? So if you still don't believe the evidence that I showed you, that this prophecy of Daniel, the 70 weeks, the 70 Shabua, verses 9, 24 through 27, if you don't believe me and you still think that this is talking about the Messiah, Jesus, the Messiah, please understand that none of the disciples, none of the early first century believers, Paul's letters, the book of Acts, and you name it, all the New Testament, nobody, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, none of them use Daniel 9:25, right here where it says Messiah, as proof or evidence of the first coming of Yeshua. It's not used as proof of the first coming of Yeshua anywhere. And Paul, like especially Paul, he wrote about a lot of things. He wrote about, he quoted Isaiah, he quoted all the prophets, basically, Psalms, Exodus. He quoted all kinds of things. But he never said, and Jesus came in the first century in the fulfillment of the Daniel 70 weeks prophecy. He never said that. It is never written down. Nobody does. They weren't presumptuous. They weren't like, oh yes, we figured this out. This is about Jesus. None of the early apostles knew what this prophecy was talking about, so they didn't even touch it. Okay? And the only place that it's mentioned, I talked about this at the very end of last episode, where Yeshua is talking, Matthew 24, and he's like, when you see the abomination of desolation take place that's spoken of by Daniel the prophet, that's like the only time really that Daniel is even spoken of in the New Testament. Really. So nobody, and think about it, like understand the impact, understand the gravity of what I'm saying here. Yeshua walked this earth for 3.5 years. Okay, he had all the inner circle. That's Peter, James, and John. His little inner circle, but also all 12 disciples. None of them, like he talked with them, he walked with them for years, and none of them, nobody ever said this is talking about him. Daniel 9. Okay, I feel like I'm belaboring the point. Just understand the significance of that. So let's recap what we talked about last episode. Okay. What I'm saying, and what the scripture has plainly shown us now that I've mathematically proved it, that what Moses wrote in Genesis 6:3, that my spirit shall not strive with man forever, his days shall be 120, Shaneh, what Moses said was a Shaneh, is what Daniel said is a Shabua in Daniel chapter 9:24 and so on. So what Moses said is a Shaneh, Daniel said is a Shabua, which is the same thing that Yeshua said was a Ganea in Matthew 24. Shaneh, Shabua, Ganea, it's all referring to the same exact concept. Again, the front of the book, Moses, the front of the book lines up with the back of the book. It always does. The problem is, quite frankly, and I'll just speak for myself, I'm oftentimes too stupid to really put it together and just understand that it fits. I've honestly only figured this stuff out recently. So, but it's our shortcomings. It's our laziness. It's honestly a spiritual darkness. It's a mystery. It's the honor of kings is to search out the matter, right? But God conceals matters. It's his glory to conceal something. So it's not just like you're stupid if you don't know this. Like it is tricky to figure out. But just understand, going back to our golden rules, this scripture is truth, man. It's absolute truth, and it doesn't change. And God doesn't lie. He doesn't change his mind. So when it says Shaneh, Shabua, and Ganea, it all lines up. I've already shown you that. And it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful when you see the scriptures just line up like this. And it's just amazing. So one thing that I did last episode is I showed you a chart. Okay, and in the chart I have the Shabua cycle, year since creation, Gregorian year. What I did though is I only showed the ending date for the like a range. I only showed you the ending date, but now I'm going to show the range of dates, okay, for each Shabua cycle. So for example, Shabua cycle number 1, it's years 1 through 49, which is the Gregorian year 3836 through 3788. And so it took me forever to put this together. There was no shortcut in Excel to do this, so I had a data entry, like put it in manually. It took me like half an hour, but I did it, and you can see just all the ranges, which is going to help us later when we look, because you don't just want the ending date, you want the range of dates. Like this is when it starts, this is when it ends, this is when it starts, this is when it ends. But remember, there's no year 0 in our counting, so it doesn't say 0 to 49. It's 1 to 49 for the first Shabua cycle. And it all fits that way. And again, we're here in the 120th revolution of time, the 120th Shane, the 120th Ganea, and I'll show you, it's the 70th week of Daniel. We are in the final Shabua from 1996 to 2044, the final 49-year period of time in God's time clock, in the Most High Elohim's time clock, the way he keeps track of time. And honestly, I debated making Daniel 9:26 and Daniel 9:27 into one episode, because I so desperately, man, I'm just so ready to talk about the 70th week of Daniel, but we're not there yet. I need to talk about that next episode, okay? We're going to be touching on it a little bit this episode. You're going to see that a lot, but oh man, I wish I could just dive into the whole 70th week, the middle of the week, what happens in the middle of the week, which, by the way, was the year 2020. Oh my God, man! I think I'll save that for next episode. But let's just talk about where we left off first, right? Because you're probably still wondering, like, okay, well, how do we get from David to like the 70th week? Like, how the other 62, 63 weeks? Like, how do we get from there to there? Okay, so we left off with the birth of David in 1040 BC, which, as I show you here in the red rectangle here, it lines up in the 50th Shabua, the 58th Shabua cycle of the entire 120, not the 70. We still need to figure out where to start counting the 70, but the entire 120 Shabua, he's right here. And let's see here. I was going to say something. We left off here, birth of David, 1040 BC. Let's keep moving on. So the entire 70 weeks prophecy is here. Let's just read verse 26, because that's what we're going to be diving into today. And after 62 weeks, 62 Shabua, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end of it shall be with a flood, and till the end of the war, desolations are determined. We are now on verse 26. That's what it says in the New King James. Okay, so let's just look at the first line, okay? And after the 62 weeks. So after, that's straightforward. Hahar, Sisim, Senaim, Shabua. Okay, this is very straightforward. There's really no interpretation that's needed here. After 62 weeks, okay? That's all it says. Math should be very straightforward at this point. You should, I mean, if for some reason you're joining you're joining this video, this episode right now, and you have not seen the other episodes leading up to this, you really should go back and watch that. But we've already defined that a Shabua is 49 years, so you take 62 times 49, we get 3,038. Now, your immediate knee-jerk reaction, which was my knee-jerk reaction, is to do the following. Take the birth year of David, which was 1040 BC, which marked the end of the first 7 Shabua, and you add that together. There's no year 0. So we go from 1040 BC, we cross over to 80 by adding 3,038, and you should get 1999. Okay, you should get 1999, but there's a problem with that. If we add 1999 to 49 years, which would be the 70th week of Daniel, remember, those just give us the 62 plus the 7, which you already figured out the 7 from the commandment at the burning bush to go get my people out of Egypt, to David's birth. That's already the first 7, and this is the 62, that's 69. We get to 1999 if we add it this way, and then for that last week, the 49th week, if we add that last 70th week to 1999, those 49 years, you get 2048. So the issue here is that disagrees with Genesis, the Shane. If we add 49 years to 1999, we go beyond the year 2044, which is our cutoff year. for the entire 120 Shabua of man. So we go past the cutoff date by 4 years, and there's a reason why it's 4 years. I'll show you that in a second. And so something's off. It doesn't work that way, okay? So here's how you figure out how to count the 70 Shabua from start to finish. And I know this is a lot on this graphic here. I'll try to make it simple. Let's start on the left. The command is to Moses at the burning bush. I just mentioned that, but that year is 1383 BC. Okay? And that's where you get the extra 4 years, because it's actually 4 years after the beginning of the 51st Shabua in which this takes place. And you can see that on my table. So the command to Moses at the burning bush is 1383 BC, which is exactly, and this is beautiful, man, exactly 7 times 49, or 343 years, the first 7 Shabua until David is born. We did that math already. 1383 BC, 1383 BC to 1040 BC is exactly 7 Shabua. So, but it doesn't, remember, we go 4 years past the cutoff of the entire 120 Shabua of man. So where do we start counting the Shabua cycle? Boom. I have it right here on the right-hand side of the screen. We start counting by Shabua cycles, starting with the 51st. So we actually count the cycle in which it took place, because really all you have to do is go backward 4 years, and that's the beginning of the cycle. So in other words, like the date of the command of the burning bush and the date of David's birth, like they don't happen right at the beginning of the Shabua. They happen 4 years into it. But what we do is we just count the actual cycle in which it happens. So we start with 51, and then we keep going to 120. And what you'll find is, I'll show you on the next on an upcoming slide. So in other words, let me just recap what I'm saying here, because I don't want you to get confused. There are 2 ways of looking at the 70 Shabua. Okay? We know that the command at the burning bush to Messiah the Prince is exactly 7 Shabua. But we also, so that's the first way of looking at it. We calculated that. It was right on the money. There's no coincidence there. But we also look at the entire Shabua cycle in which these events took place, and then line them up with the total 120 Shabua, starting with the creation of Adam. Okay, and just as a reminder here, I have Leviticus 25:8 from the Tree of Life version. You are to count off 7 Shabbatot of years. 7 times 7 years, so that the time is 7 Shabbatot of years, 49 years. So again, just as a reminder here, I'm not making up the counting of 49s, 49, 49. This is something that was commanded a long time ago that we just forgot about, and people don't do, or they don't understand, or they don't care. But again, this is not coincidence. Everything I'm showing you, counting by 49, this is the way that God himself keeps track of time. Just a reminder. I know we talked about that last episode. So when you do it all, the way I just showed you, and we start from the 51st of the 120 Shabua cycles, and we make that our number 1, so that's our number. The 51st is our number 1 of the 70 Shabua cycle count. Then we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We get all the way to 1996 to 2044 being the 70th week, which fits perfectly. So the cycles, the 70 Shabua of Daniel, the 70 Shabua that are decreed for his people and for his holy city, that actually starts in the 51st Shabua cycle, and boom, we get all the way to the 120, and it fits perfectly within the parameters of the scripture that has already been given to us in Genesis 6:3. So it's so amazing. It's so amazing. It just fits perfectly. Now, before moving forward, the prophecy we're about to read, which we already did, but we're about to read in the Hebrew. And the next verse of the prophecy, 27, they insert a lot of words from the translators. Okay, the translators put a lot of extra filler words. And really, it's because they had no idea what this prophecy was talking about at all. They were totally guessing. They didn't know what the hell it was talking about. And, can you blame them? No, because it was sealed until the time of the end. Hindsight is 2020. They had no idea what it was talking about, so they just threw a bunch of whatever words they thought that it was in there, and it's just a mess. So we're going to, again, the name of this presentation was Decoding the 70 Shabua of Daniel. We're decoding this thing. And again, I just want to point your attention back to something, because I actually misspoke on the last episode a little bit. So I want to clear something up. So in Genesis 21, 8 through 9, remember, there was an insertion of the word same here. Let me just read it. So the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast in the same day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, scoffing. So, anyways, the word same is inserted here. The word same has been totally inserted. It's not, the Hebrew word for same is not used here. So again, what happened here? What we do know from this verse and from all the other prophecies is he was 10 years old when Ishmael was mocking him, scoffing. He was being mistreated at 10 years old. Okay, we know that. So it can't be that the feast... Could it be that the feast was made on the same day Isaac was weaned? Probably not, because according to tradition, Israeli tradition, the bar mitzvah happens later in a child's life. 10, 11, 12, whatever. It happens later, the bar mitzvah, which, it's just like, hey, you're becoming a man, son. So to me, it makes sense that, the Ishmael was mistreating Isaac the same day he was having the feast, which is not the same day he was weaned. He would have been weaned earlier because, child's only on breast milk for 2 years. Anyways, just wanted to clear that up. It really, he made a great feast. Isaac was weaned before that, and around the time that the feast happened, it could have been on the feast day itself or afterwards, but Isaac was 10 years old and Ishmael mistreated him. That's, anyways, just want to clear that up. I misspoke a little bit on the last episode. Just want to clear that up. So let's look at 926. So we already looked at the first line. Let's look at the next line. Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself, is what we're being told in the English. So again, going back to our charts, this is where the charts are amazing. We already know where we start the count. It's the burning bush. So what exactly are we supposed to be looking for after the year 1995? This is the year that we're supposed to be looking for something after 1995. It says Messiah will be cut off, but not for himself. Okay. So we're being told something significant is going to happen. It's going to happen during this final Shabua that we are living in from 1996 to 2044. Okay. So, but we have to kind of fix the text here because, my gosh, man, look, they added, how it says, but not for himself? They completely added that. There's no Hebrew words for that. It says Shabua, Mashiach, Karak, Am, Nagid, and we're going to get to Am Nagid later. But the English totally inserted, but not for himself. That's totally inserted. We're going to delete that. So what it should say is, after 62 weeks, Messiah cut off. That's what it should say. Let's focus on that for a second. So the first word we're going to look at here is cut off. Now we've looked at this a lot, and remember, I was like, everybody's quoting Daniel 9:26. You're gonna understand once I unpack this for you. You're gonna understand why they're quoting this and why they're actually quoting Daniel 9:26, and it's actually what's going on in the world today. So let's look at the first word, karat. Law of first mention. Genesis 9:11 is where it's first used. This is what it says. Thus I will establish my covenant with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood. Never again shall all flesh be karat by the waters of the flood. Never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. This is Yehovah God himself speaking to Noah. And he's saying, I'm not going to cut off flesh by the waters of the flood. Ooh, that's not a good sign. That is not a good sign. That's not good, man. Honestly, it bothers me to consume this information responsibly. You're going to see what I'm talking about. Man, that is not good. The fact that that's the law first mention verse for this word that we're trying to unpack here. So, outline of biblical usage. It says to cut off, cut down, cut off a body part, kill, eliminate. It could mean to cut a covenant, but that's not what it's saying here. Cut off, destroy, take down, perish, fail. Ooh. This is not good, man. This is not good. So, and this next word that I'm about to reveal to you, okay? Mashiach. We've already looked at it. We've looked at it quite a bit. Does it mean Jesus the Messiah? It's Jesus. No. No. Oh my gosh, no. It turns out that inside this prophecy, there's two different Mashiach that we're going to be looking at, okay? The first one was David, so who's this Mashiach, okay? Well, again, this is all old information. I've already pulled these up on the screen. I'm doing it again, okay? In an earlier episode, I said Mashiach rarely refers to the Messiah, Yeshua, in the Old Testament, okay? And this is what I'll say. This is what I'll tell you. It's going to open up your eyes even more. The only two places where the English word Messiah is used, they're both in the book of Daniel in this prophecy, and they're used incorrectly. They're incorrectly translated both times. It should say anointed. Anyways, you're going to find out Mashiach is never translated as Messiah. Never, never, never. Mashiach is never translated as Messiah into the English anywhere else except for Daniel, specifically in Daniel chapter 9, what we've been looking at. It's not talking about Jesus. Okay, anyways, I'm not going to belabor that point. So remember, this word simply means anointed or saint, which I've circled here on the screen. All that means is a person that's set apart in the eyes of God. That's all it means. Anointed. Anointed. Okay? It could be a lot of things, and almost never. I've looked it up. It almost never talks about the Messiah Yeshua. Okay? Anyways, of all the places where Mashiach is used, okay, there's one place that is the most relevant. It is the most important for the Daniel 9:26 verse. It is Lamentations 4:20. Now, before I get into Lamentations, it's commonly understood, although we don't know for sure, that Jeremiah the prophet wrote Lamentations. And Lamentations is a book, it literally means mourning, crying, being in pain over like really bad stuff. So Lamentations was written by Jeremiah, let's just say. And it describes the destruction, the aftermath of the destruction, during the destruction of the southern kingdom of Israel. So the Jews, Judah, Benjamin, half-tribe of Levi. Okay. Lamentations describes the suffering and the conquering of the southern kingdom. Let's take a look. The one verse that we're going to look at is Lamentations 4:20. The breath of our nostrils, the anointed of Yehovah, was caught in their pits, of whom we said, under his shadow we shall live among the nations. So if you look at the Hebrew of what it says here, Ruah ap Mashiach, Yehovah lakad. Okay, it says Mashiach right there. The significance of what I'm showing you here is so big, so freaking big, man. So big. They were sinners, okay? When you read the entire book of Lamentations, they were sinners. They were sinning. They were not in covenant with God. They didn't care. They didn't even do anything that God required of them. They're just walking around lawlessness, cheating their neighbor, doing all kinds of law-breaking stuff, sin, depravity. Just read it. You'll understand what, they're sacrificing to pagan gods. They're doing all this crazy stuff. Very, very pagan. Totally anti-Torah. Totally anti-God's commandments. Totally. And they're still being referred to as Messiah here. Mashiach. They're still, even in a sinful state, they're being referred to as Mashiach. Do you understand the significance of this? I'll touch on that a little bit later, okay? But again, I've already said a little bit of this, but Jeremiah was describing the destruction of the southern kingdom. He was in despair, weeping. And let's just read Lamentations 2:1, 2, and 3. How the Lord has covered the daughter of Zion with a cloud in his anger. He cast down from heaven to earth the beauty of Israel, and did not remember his footstool in the day of his anger. The Lord has swallowed up and has not pitied all the dwelling places of Yaakov. He has thrown down in his wrath the strongholds of the daughter of Judah. He has brought them down to the ground. He has profaned the kingdom and its princes. He has cut off in fierce anger. He has cut off in fierce anger every horn of Israel. He has drawn back his right hand from before the enemy. He has blazed against Jacob like a flaming fire, devouring all around. Okay, and I have an arrow here in a box. Do you see the similarity to the language being used in Daniel? Okay, Daniel was quoting Lamentations when he wrote. I'm telling you, he was in Messiah. He used the word Messiah because that's the same word that Jeremiah used in Lamentations to describe the people. Okay, so there's more parallels to the book of Lamentations also. Look at Lamentations 2:11 through 12. This is what Jeremiah says. My eyes are filled with tears. My stomach is in torment. Other translations say that he was vomiting. The bile is coming out of his stomach because he's just so sick of what he's seeing. Let's keep reading. My heart is poured out on the ground over the destruction of the daughter of my people. As young children and infants languish in the city squares, they say to their mothers, where is grain and wine? As they faint like a wounded soldier in the city squares, as their lives ebb away in their mother's bosom. Okay, this is what Daniel 10:2-3 says. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning for 3 full weeks. I ate no rich food, nor did I eat meat, nor wine enter my mouth, nor did I anoint myself with oil until the end of 3 weeks. Do you see the parallel? Daniel is acting just like Jeremiah was with lamentations, with mourning over what he saw. And oh my gosh, Jeremiah saw the destruction of his people. I'm telling you, Daniel saw the destruction of his people. That's why he's so sick. So again, we got to go back. Who is the subject of this prophecy? 70 weeks, 70 Shabua are determined for your people and your holy city. Daniel chose to use the word Messiah or Mashiach to refer to his people in the last Shabua after the year 1995. His people that have been scattered throughout the world. His people that are currently consisting primarily, they're primarily located in the United States, Israel, UK, Canada, Australia, Europe, Latin America, etc. He is talking about us right now. Your people right now, Daniel's people right now. He is talking about us, okay? And before we go on to the next verse, do you understand now? Oh my gosh. Go read the entire book of Lamentations and look at what it describes. Famine in the streets, people selling their prized possessions to be able to eat. People suffering from famine, the infants are so hungry that their tongues cling to the roof of their mouths for thirst. What are we seeing right now? We're seeing an infant formula shortage in the United States. Do you not see the parallels between what happened in Lamentations in Jeremiah's day with the destruction of the southern kingdom, what Daniel saw that made him sick? He's seeing the same thing happening again because it's a cycle. I'm going to show you more details about this. I wanted to include more verses from Lamentations to really show you what's coming and what's already happening in the United States and Western nations. But I didn't really want to include too much because I want to cover what we're talking about next. But just understand that you and I are being cut off. Western power, Western nations, any place that has a significant number of Abraham's seed in it is being cut off right now. We're going to talk more about this next episode, okay? Because we're going to talk about when that cutting off happened and what's going to happen next with the abomination of desolation. I'll touch more on this later, but just understand that and I gave you a list of books, Yar Davidi, Kadesh Yahweh, well, I think that was one of them, but there's all these works and books, Joseph Dumont, all these different works, YouTube videos. I gave you a list in an earlier episode where you can look these things up and research who the lost tribes are, where they are in the modern day context. I've already covered this. I didn't want to spend too much time on it because I could literally spend just like 15 episodes just on, the USA is Manasseh and the UK is Ephraim, and I could just go on and on and on. It would take forever. But just understand that it's talking about us right now, and we're being cut off, and it's, again, that word cut off being used in Genesis the way it was. What I'm showing you in Lamentations, it's really heavy, man. It's really heavy. We'll talk about it more, but let's just continue decoding the what this is even talking about anyway. So we already know after 62 weeks, Messiah, anointed, cut off. Okay, then it says, and the people of a prince who is to come. So it turns out there are actually 2 Nagid in this prophecy as well. The first Nagid that we talked about was David. So who's this other Nagid? I would translate this verse differently. So just look at what I have here, because again, let me see. I just changed it so it says, instead of "and the people of a prince who is to come," "and the people of a prince will come." Okay, just changing a little bit. But the question is, who is the Nagid being spoken of here? And honestly, at this point in time, it's not super clear. It is possible, though, that this verse is talking about the Antichrist, or the Anti-Messiah, whose number is 666, referred to in the book of Revelation. But it's not, to me, it's not super clear who the Nagid is quite yet. After I show you the information in the next episode, I think we're going to have enough information to make some educated guesses, but I don't think we're going to know until the Abomination of Desolation happens. Then we'll know who the Nagid is. But here's some candidates, right? Here's the usual suspects.